What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Camper Report. And today we have Alex from the 49ers Cutback joining us on the show. Last time we talked, Alex, it was the 49ers Cowboys game. A lot has changed since then. So I'm excited. How are you doing today in this fine Sunday morning?
And look, I'm doing great. I know 49ers fans are hit and miss on this matter right
Yeah,
now,
I know.
but I'm doing all right. So there's that at least.
Yeah. Real quick before I forgot to ask you this, are you watching any March Madness? Like anything happening there? Because it's crazy what is going on. I mean,
I've been
North Carolina beating Baylor and stuff.
that was
It's
nuts. That was nuts.
yeah,
As a guy who is I'm a Florida Gator fan,
yeah.
so team hasn't been
Oh,
really relevant. Yeah,
yeah.
they haven't been relevant. They haven't been doing very well. I
Mhm.
do have a soft spot for the University of North Carolina. So it's always been one of the teams I like kind of look at and always root for and support. Haven't watched too much of it, only
Yeah,
because I've been so enthralled in free agency that I
true.
really haven't had a chance to. I'll probably get into it more starting next year. I've really
Mhm.
taken. I used to coach basketball, so I've taken a little bit of break from basketball
Yeah,
since I stepped away from coaching and focused on the podcast. So next year, probably a little bit more focused on that next year.
yeah. Well, so let's get right into it. The 49ers, let's get into some NFC talk. Odell Beckham, and stuff like that. Obviously, the Rams traded. This was a big move. They traded Robert Woods to the Titans for a sixth round pick. It's pretty low. But my question to you, and in exchange, well, they got like Allen Robinson in free agency, and they got Odell Beckham. But my question to you is, was it the right move for the Rams not to re-sign Odell Beckham and trade Robert Woods and replace them with Allen Robinson?
So I understand the aspect of going for Allen Robinson. I understand the dynamics as a route runner, what he could potentially bring to the offense in terms of another receiving threat. Woods is coming off the ACL, so there's concerns at his age and everything else about maybe route running speed, things of that nature. However, and this is a big however for me, I don't think there's an understanding of how important Robert Woods is to the offense
Yeah,
and what he does,
true.
especially for the run game. I mean, talk about blocking wise. This guy is a dynamic piece and a leader in that locker room. So you're going to be losing something in that aspect. We'll see if how big of an impact that is.
Yeah,
However, the Odell thing is a little interesting just because I don't think they're necessarily done with it. I know that they just signed Stafford to the big extension, but he took less money in this year in
true.
the contract. So there is still a chance that Odell comes back in. And if Odell comes back in, you're looking at, again, a formidable receiving core. Odell Beckham, Allen Robinson, Cooper Kupp. Obviously, those are problems. But the Rams are doing exactly what they did last year. The only difference is they're weaker in a lot of other spots. You lost Von Miller.
Right.
Your edge rushing now is weaker. You still don't have a linebacking core. It doesn't
True.
exist. Weddle is going to
Good
be
point.
going back to retirement. So you're going to have, your situation there in the safety room that, if guys can't stay
Right.
healthy, you're weaker at that spot. Um, yes, they're shoring up positions, but they're not deep. They're not deep. There's no depth behind some of these starters. And so if some guys go down, they're banking on work out in their favor. That could be the case.
Right.
But the Niners are also making moves as well and making changes, right? The idea here is that they're probably moving off of Jimmy Garoppolo. So if you're moving off of Jimmy, your offense should take an uptick in terms of athleticism at the quarterback position and
Mm.
upside at the quarterback position, because we all know what Jimmy's upside is and where his ceiling is. We have no idea where Trey's is. So you are making subtle changes in San Francisco, and the Rams, it feels like, are making big changes. But Allen Robinson had his worst year last year in Chicago. I mean, his
Right.
last couple of years have been a little bit on the decline, and they paid a lot of money. So we'll see if it ends up paying out. I think it's a little bit of a risky move, and I think fans shouldn't forget how important Robert Woods has been to that offense since he's been there,
Yeah.
and it may change some things.
I could definitely understand with like the Odell Beckham thing, he's now 2 ACLs, it's rough to like really trust a guy like that. But again, like Robert Woods, both guys are coming off of severe injuries, but Robert Woods is pretty much healed up because he got injured pretty earlier on in the season. So like Robert Woods, I mean, it's risky, but at the same time, I can see where they're coming from with the aspect of like where both guys are on ACL injuries, off of ACL injuries, and I think they're looking at from a standpoint of Allen Robinson can still be a really good receiver if he just has a good quarterback to throw to him. But again, Robert Woods, I'm more concerned about the Robert, like, for the 49ers, this is a good thing because Robert Woods was always a nightmare, and now like one slot receiver from the Rams is gone. So that's big too. But Allen Robinson, I don't know. I think they basically said we don't want to take that risk. We're gonna go with a guy who has been good in the past, and maybe we can resurrect his career a little bit with with Matthew Stafford and stuff like that. So I think it's a good move. I think for them, I think that was actually a good move just because they didn't want to take that risk, but of bringing both guys that are coming off of two really big injuries back. So
agreed. I think you're 100%. 100% on there. It is a risk either way, right? It's always a risk, no matter what you do with a guy when you're dealing with injuries and just how to build your roster out, especially after a Super Bowl. Teams are typically trying to poach players off your team. The Rams have fell victim to that a little bit, and then you also have things like older, aging guys wanting to ride off into the sunset, which the Rams are also dealing with as well. And I appreciate Andrew Whitworth deciding, hey, I got a Super Bowl. It's time to go. It's time.
Well, and that's the thing. Like Robert Woods, like they've lost a lot of people. Like my thing with the Rams is like, are you sure the Rams are going to be as good as they were last year? Because don't forget they've lost Andrew Whitworth, Von Miller, Robert Woods.
Troy Reader didn't get tendered either. They're starting middle linebacker.
Sebastian Joseph Day.
He's gone.
Also left. So they've lost quite a bit of pieces, and obviously they don't have a lot of draft capital. So you're going to have to look through that through free agency. They've brought in a few pieces, but I mean, they are definitely, I think, weaker. They'll probably still be, they're banking on the fact that the NFC isn't very good and so
but there was no way for them to know that going into the offseason. There was no way to know that the AFC, every team in the AFC, it feels like, was going to go all in free agency.
Right.
And bring every name they could possibly bring. The NFC is extremely weak right now. And the Rams were 3 points better than the San Francisco 49ers with a Jimmy Garoppolo with an avulsion fracture on his thumb and an effed up shoulder, right? He was 3 points better.
Yeah.
3. That roster was 3 points better, and they've lost a bunch of key pieces. I don't see anything the Rams have done right now that makes me go, man, they are going to be exponentially better than San Francisco next year, even though San Francisco has been not that active.
Well, and the Rams are taking the approach of let's just try to go out and get all these big players. The 49ers are, I think, taking the approach of the draft. Let's get stronger through the draft with all these picks that we've gotten. I mean, we have like 14 picks now.
I'm not sure what the number is now. The last time I checked, it was 10. I haven't looked since the last time I looked. It was 10 about 3 or 4 days ago.
Well, because
I know they were losing one of those picks. One of those picks was going to go back to Miami. But again, the idea here, right, is we're trading Jimmy and probably getting 2 picks back. I mean, that's what San Francisco's making it seem like, right?
Yeah.
The only way they're moving off of Jimmy Garoppolo is 2 picks, and one of them's a second round pick. That's what it makes. They're making it seem like. So that means you're looking at possibly 11 picks going into the draft.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there, bro. 11 to 12, somewhere in there. That's a good amount of picks. I'll take that many picks.
Yeah,
that's
and
nice.
again, I mean, a lot of them are later round, but like we've been able to successfully draft guys through the later rounds. So yes, that's a big thing as well.
Not wrong there, man. Definitely not wrong there.
Right. So let's move on. It seems as if the 49ers, obviously we've talked about them not being free agency. This was one of the deepest free agent class, and I'll just say this, like, they could miss out on a lot of guys, but there's still people out there. I mean, Calais Campbell. I'm a big fan of Lyle Collins. Also like Tyrann Mathieu. There's still guys out there that they can sign. My thing is I think they're going to take the safety approach through the draft. I think what the 49ers, my thing is Kyle Shanahan has always been actually kind of like, if there's one free agency that he wants to sign, if there's one position that the 49ers have been kind of known to sign in through free agency is the offensive lineman, like Trent Williams and stuff. So I think Kyle Shanahan maybe would be a little bit more interested in signing free agent offensive linemen than free agent safeties. So I think you can rule out Tyrann Mathieu, but maybe don't rule out a guy like Lyle Collins. I mean, there's good safeties in the draft. Who knows about the offensive linemen in the draft? I mean, you got Kirby Josephs in the draft. You got the guy from Cincinnati, Brian Cook. So what do you think about this? And it seems as if the 49ers are being a little lukewarm in free agency. Why is this?
I've had to taper my response to this typically, especially on the podcast, on our show. I've had to taper because I want the Niners to do things. I want the Niners to go all in. I want the 49ers to trade Jimmy Garoppolo, save $25.9 million in cap space, and then start signing a bunch of big names. That's what I want San Francisco to do. However, the track record would dictate this is not what they are going to do. Let's go back to 2017. 2017, Kyle Shanahan's first year. The key free agency additions for the San Francisco 49ers were defensive tackle, Earl Mitchell, DeAndre Carter, wide receiver, and K'Wan Williams. Those are the three big names that had no comp pick attached to them. They added a bunch of other free agents that year. But you tell me if any of these names right here sound like huge 19, and this is a bad football team. 2017, bad football team. Niners have cap space, the ability to sign people. Here we go. Brian Hoyer, Kyle Juszczyk, Pierre Garcon, Marquise Goodwin, Logan Paulson, Malcolm Smith, Robbie Gould, Matt Barkley, Aldrick Robinson, Brock Coyle, Don Jones, Dakota Watson, Tim Hightower, Jason DeManchi, Gary Gilliam, Brandon Fusco, Tim Barnes, Will Davis, Elvis Dumerville. Where's the big name? Pierre Garcon is the biggest name on that list, right? It's the biggest name on that list, and Pierre Garcon ended up getting hurt a bunch. The Niners don't do this. They don't go after big names. They don't do it. What do they do? What do they do really well in free agency during this period? They trade for guys. That's what they do. They trade for people. D Ford in 2019. Right. In 2019, you had the D Ford trade, the same draft you draft Nick Bosa, but you go out and you grab D Ford, and a lot of people feel hit or miss about this. It's fine. In 2019, though, D Ford was fantastic. The year you actually traded for him, it was fantastic. You did exactly what you needed to do in that free agency period. By the way, here were the two big names they signed: Quan Alexander and Tevin Coleman.
Yeah, I mean, both back then, that year. Yeah,
back then, K1 was a risk because he was coming off of an injury. He was coming off an injury, and Tevin Coleman was a 1B running back to someone's 1A in Atlanta. Like, maybe there's something there, but you're not 100% sure. Like, it's probably a nice addition, a good rotation. In 2020, Travis Benjamin, Tom Compton, Kerry Hyder, Joe Walker. Those were the Niners just don't do this. They don't do this. They trade for guys, right? You traded for Trent Williams during the draft. In order to bring him in, you've traded for D Ford, but you've drafted people.
Yeah.
Like that's what the Niners have done. They've drafted people. And look, in their unrestricted free agent class too, this is something that a lot of people forget about also. The 49ers have done a really good job of grabbing in a bunch of unrestricted free agents. And then literally like 3 to 4 of them go on to be key rotational or key pieces in terms of them building out a roster, 3-4 years from now. And then they're on the roster and play significant roles. They'll bring in 8 or 9 guys and 3 of them hit. And it's like, how does that consistently happen?
Right.
The Niners have found a recipe. They found a formula that works for them. I would love there to be a mixture and a blend of both, right?
Yeah.
Bring in the big impactful names that you don't have to wait for develop while also doing that. But I think at the end of the day too, that a lot of people forget about is it isn't their money. It's York's money. They're spending Jed York's money. Is Jed York telling them we're not doing this yet, right? I don't want you spending, X amount over. I don't want you creating void years and pushing money down the road. Do it within the constraints and the framework of the actual NFL cap,
right?
Or is this something that they've chosen? I think it's probably a little bit of both.
I mean, I think you're right there. And I mean, the 49ers, they obviously have never wanted to, but I think the time that it's going to be really aggressive is maybe around the draft. Like we've always seen like them making trades around the draft for people. And I mean, do I agree with that? Yeah, kind of. But the thing is like the 49ers, there's so many good players that like La'el Collins, for example, you could get him for his average salary was $10 million a year last time. I think it was like a 5-year, $50 million deal. So you could probably now, is he very injury prone? I think what was the offensive lineman that was injury prone for the Cowboys? I'm not sure if he was the one that kept getting injured, but he's a guy that like, why wouldn't you go after a guy or like Calais Campbell or something like that? Like go after guys like that can make your team better. The trade, I mean, trading around the draft, I don't know. I think Alex Mack, we'll have to see with him. And maybe you'll see some draft day trades, but this team could be, they've always been like this. It's history, but this is the one of the most juiciest free agents that we've seen in a while. Why wouldn't you go and be a little bit more aggressive on guys that usually would never hit the market? So, yeah, I mean,
I don't disagree with you there, man. You're not wrong. I wanted so many names, so many names, so many things, and
I mean, I
none of
agree
them.
with the Charvarius Ward move. I think that was a good move. I mean, a lot of people were like, "Go get J.C. Jackson." Well, this guy's like he has the potential to be a very good cornerback. And I mean, he's young and as well. So I agreed with that move. But like, why? There was other things like maybe like Chandler Jones or something like that. Like that. That's a guy that you could really get. Real quick question for you: Is Arden Key, has he been signed by any other team, or are we bringing him back?
No one has signed him yet, which would tell me, right, as much as I saw he was flying up boards in terms of top 150 free agents, someone who's going to command $6.25 million a year for a team.
Yeah.
I don't think $6.25 million is what he's going to command. I think it's going to be probably closer to about 5.5, which starts to put him a little bit closer to where San Francisco probably is willing to pay. I think they'd be willing to pay him right around 4.5. So there's a way the Niners could make that deal work out and get him in here for maybe a year or two, because I do think he believes he could add heavy value to a team. But if someone's not going to pay it to him right now, he may be willing to, hey, why don't we come back on a 1-year deal in San Francisco? I do it again. Yeah. We run it back with this group. I show I can get this done. And then when the salary cap explodes next season, which it's going to, someone will pay me, $10 million, 10.5 a year to come in and do the same thing.
Well, that's a good point. And I think the 49ers, maybe they're pushing back all this salary. Maybe they'll go all in like for free agency next year. Because again, you've still got a rookie, like kind of second-year quarterback that doesn't have as much experience. And it's a good point because maybe they're wanting to wait to go all in or wait to sign all these big guys. Because if you do fail, you've got maybe a guy that isn't as experienced. But like maybe this year, you're a good team. You still make the playoffs. Maybe don't make it as far. But then next year, the year after, you've got Trey Lance, playoff experience and all. And then maybe that's the year that you break out. So you've still got a few years on his window where I could see in the future the 49ers being aggressive, but maybe not. I guess not this year.
That's so frustrating, though, with how weak the NFC is right now. With how weak the NFC is right now, it's like, dude, just do it now. Do it now. Get to the Super Bowl this year. Get there right now. Build the team around Trey. Get all the other pieces. And go do it now, because if you get yourself into the Super Bowl with as strong as the AFC is, these teams could beat each other up by the time they get through playoffs. You could have a weakened team sitting there in the Super Bowl, and it's just ripe for the picking. You don't know what's going to happen, so take the chance, because you know what you got to deal with in the NFC. You got to deal with Matt Stafford and the Rams. You have to deal with Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals, and you're going to have to deal with Aaron Rodgers with no receivers currently at the moment in Green Bay. And Tom Brady in Tampa. That's it. Like that's what you're dealing with. That's hilarious.
Yeah, I mean the Packers, they're gonna be. I have no idea what they have. I think they're gonna try to draft a receiver with that pick. Maybe get somebody like Chris Olave, or the guy that I would really like the Packers to get if they could. Now they have 2 first-round picks. Drake London from USC.
Don't say that. Don't say that. That's my favorite wide receiver in the draft.
Okay. Maybe like not for the 49ers.
I don't want to see Aaron Rodgers.
Purely from an NFL standpoint, Drake London on the Packers, kind of replacing Devontae Adams, actually would kind of be I feel like a good place for him to land. So
it's a win. It's a win for the Packers. You just traded away a tall, lengthy, speedy wide receiver who can run a lot of different routes on the route tree with a tall, lengthy, not super speedy, but speedy enough at 6'5". He's speedy enough with size who can go catch the jump ball, dynamic in space, good route runner. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see Aaron Rodgers having talented young wide receivers. You know what I would prefer? I would prefer if the Packers decided to draft a quarterback in the first round. Again, just do that. Do that again.
Yes. Yeah.
please do that again. Green Bay.
So the next one is the 49ers, obviously Deshaun Watson going to the Browns. That was a huge, I was like, dang, I think as soon as Baker requested a trade, I knew something was up there. And I was like, what a better place that Deshaun Watson, he would want to go there because they do have weapons. They have a good coach. And so I'm like, I mean, if you're Deshaun Watson, are you picking between the Panthers or the Browns? I would pick the Browns easily. So obviously now that he's out of the picture, he's gone to the Browns. What is the next domino that has to fall for Jimmy Garoppolo to get traded Because again, the Browns were a landing spot maybe for Jimmy Garoppolo. Now they have Deshaun Watson. So is there really any other place, or what's the next domino that really has to fall?
Oh,
It seems
there's
like this
tons.
saga just drags out.
It's not going away either, Ben.
Yeah.
It's not going to go away. Ant and I were talking about this, and I remember off air we were talking a little bit, and I remember telling him, dude, is there any way this is going to drag out through the draft into training camp? And
Yeah.
he's like, no way. And then we stopped and thought about it for a second. He was like, there's a world. There's a world where that happens. The Niners are playing hardball. They know what they believe. They know what Jimmy Garoppolo's value is. And as of right now, you have desperate teams that maybe don't necessarily value Jimmy Garoppolo the same. They're in kind of between a rock and a hard place. And the reason why I say that, and some people will get really upset, no, it's they understand that Jimmy Garoppolo has no value. No, it's not that. Matt Rule, Carolina, definitely a landing spot on the hot seat. He's on the hot seat.
Okay.
They went in for Sam Darnold last year. That did not work out. It actually blew up in his face, and he fired his offensive coordinator, used him as a scapegoat, which means there is no more scapegoats in Carolina.
Yeah.
If Carolina sucks this year, Matt Rule's out. He's gone.
Yeah.
Carolina no longer has a head coach. They're completely rebuilding. Sam Darnold's a failed experiment. And you got 5 years in front of you before you're a good team again. And they have a good defense. They've kind of gone all in. But they're looking at Jimmy Garoppolo. We gave up a 2, 4, and a 6 last year. Can we do that again? Because Jimmy Garoppolo is better than Sam Darnold at this point in time. You're not going to go to San Francisco and go, here's a 2, here's a 3. No, you've already set what the market is for guys like Sam Darnold, a 2, 4, and a 6, which means you have to pay that or more in order to land Jimmy Garoppolo. They don't want to have to do that unless they have to do that. Same thing with the Colts. You've set the market with Carson Wentz. 2/3 and a pick swap. That's what it is. And one of those thirds can escalate to a second if Wentz plays 70% of the snaps. Well, Jimmy played over 70% of the snaps. So the Niners are looking at the Colts. The Colts are going, here's a second. Here's a second. You give us Jimmy Garoppolo. And the Niners are going, my God, you moved off of Carson Wentz to try and move on to Jimmy Garoppolo. You're not getting Jimmy Garoppolo for a second. You're getting Jimmy Garoppolo for either the same deal you dealt for Carson Wentz or a better version of the deal you dealt for Carson Wentz, right? You're either giving us a second and a third and a pick swap, or you're giving us a third, 2/3, and one of those thirds can escalate to a second if Jimmy plays 7. The Colts don't want to have to overpay. They went in on Carson Wentz last year, and it blew up in their face. If you make the same mistake, Reich is out. He's gone. So you have those two teams. You have the Saints that are in the same boat. New coach, all this stuff. And I've had some people be like, well, the Saints did all this stuff with the cap. And they're not going to sign Jimmy. They'll just go sign Jameis Winston. I was like, you're right. Because the reality is I don't think the Saints were ever in on Jimmy Garoppolo.
Right.
The Saints were $88 million over the cap. They cleared $100 million. Anyone want to know why they cleared $100 million?
Yeah.
It wasn't so that they could go get Jimmy Garoppolo. It was so they could go get Deshaun Watson. That's the reality. They wanted to try and get Deshaun. If you could get Deshaun, then clearing $100 million in cap, restructuring all of these players, letting some certain guys go, made sense. If you didn't get Deshaun, then guys like Terron Armstead, who got restructured and were off the team, got cut.
Yeah.
He's not coming back. He's going to go compete. He's like, you guys didn't get Deshaun? You guys probably aren't going to do anything because you've restructured a bunch of guys. So I don't think the Saints were actually ever really players. Do they need a quarterback? Yes. Are they actually players? Probably not. And same thing with Seattle. The Niners are not dealing Jimmy Garoppolo to Seattle. Everyone just needs to get over that. It's not happening. It's never going to happen. You're just not going to do it. Even if they came back to you and said, like, here's a first-round pick, the Niners are going to go, yeah, we'll take that first, and here you go. Here's a quarterback that can make you guys be, somewhat successful.
I don't even think the Seahawks would want him.
Not for first.
Him for 4. No,
not for first.
Seahawks know how bad he is, or they know his limitations, and he doesn't really fit their system. So what they want to do.
Well, here's the thing: if
you're
a team that wants to run the football more,
yeah,
then Jimmy Garoppolo is the perfect quarterback for you. The problem is that the Niners are not going to. You're going to have to significantly overpay, and a first is not overpaying. A first wouldn't be overpaying; it would be slightly overpaying at the moment for Jimmy because the Niners value a second and something else. So you'd be slightly overpaying. They would be like, "All right, Seattle, you want Jimmy? We need your next 3 years of first-round picks." And Seattle's not doing that. They're not going to do that. So the Niners have 2 options, right? Well, actually, they have 3 options. I think they have the Colts, and I think you have a team like the Panthers. I think those are your viable options Those are two teams that are desperate, that coaches are on the hot seat. They have to make a move. They have to get a guy in who's to come in, change the culture, shift how things are done. The problem is both of them went all in last year.
Yeah.
Both of them lost those bets, didn't make the playoffs, and both of them are a little gun shy right now. Just a little bit gun shy. So they're looking at other options. We'll see what happens. The problem is for the 49ers fans, it may be closer to draft that this happens. And I hate saying that.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, a few weeks ago, I was like, if this draft, I could see it dragging on to the draft. Like, I literally said that, and it's so true. But the thing is like, now the Browns still have Baker Mayfield on their roster. So I think every team is going to want to vie for Baker Mayfield than Jimmy Garoppolo or whatever. So what team is, I think the team that will probably be the most likely to get Baker Mayfield, I think that's the next domino, is probably the Colts. Wouldn't you agree? Because
no.
Really? Okay.
No. So here's the thing. So here's my Baker. I've been really sitting on this Baker take for a while, and the Browns and the Niners, because there's a lot of Niners fans right now saying the Niners have overplayed the hand. John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, they're being too stubborn. They overplayed their hand. It's too late now. Jimmy's market's gone. Every time someone makes a move, another quarterback becomes available. We're just sitting there waiting for Jimmy Garoppolo. All of this stuff. Here's the big difference between the Browns and the Niners in terms of how you've handled the quarterback situation.
Okay.
The Niners last year, before they trade up, call Jimmy Garoppolo. Tell them what the plan is. Hey, listen, we're doing this. We love you. You're going to be the starting quarterback in 2022, but here's the reality, man. You haven't been available. You haven't been. We got to make sure that we've secured the future.
Okay.
We have to make sure that we've secured the future. So we're going to trade up. We're going to draft who we think is the best available quarterback there at 3 to come in, learn behind you. And look, we're gonna do this way. Jimmy not happy about it, but you know what Jimmy does? Jimmy goes, hey man, I respect that.
Yeah.
I respect you being a man, coming to me as a man, telling me what the plan is here, and that I'm in the plan right now, but I may not be in the plan in the future. I don't like it because I feel like I'm the best option, but I respect it. So there's no hard issues, there's no hard feelings. Jimmy knows he's gonna be the guy. He knows it's this year. He knows he's got someone behind him, so he knows he has to play at an elevated level, because if he doesn't, he could drop, right? He could get replaced. They've already got the guy behind him that they're ready to replace him with. They moved up. The Browns may have talked to Baker about, hey, we're going to go after some guys. But after the Browns were told no, right? After the Browns were told no, what did they do? They went all in, guaranteed $230 million in order to bring Baker Mayfield, bring Deshaun Watson into Cleveland, right? And Baker's on the way out. Baker said afterwards, apparently demanded a trade after all this went down. Apparently his agents also called Cleveland and told them he plans to not play this year regardless. If you don't get Deshaun Watson, he's not playing. He's going to sit. He's going to do all this. So now if you're the Browns, you are literally caught between a rock and a hard place. We're either going into next year with Case Keenum as the starting quarterback, or we do whatever we got to do to get Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
We figure it out after that. The Browns are desperate to move off of Baker. So here's the thing. Niners, maybe not in a great spot, because I do think now that the Baker Mayfield situation is going to play out before Jimmy Garoppolo's.
Right.
Not for the reason people think. It isn't because Baker Mayfield is viewed as a better quarterback. It's because Cleveland is desperate to move Baker Mayfield. They have no leverage. Baker has no leverage. Browns have no leverage. You've already got your quarterback of the future. You already got him in, and you're going to be paying him a hefty amount of money over the next 5 years in order to accomplish that.
True.
Baker wants out. He isn't playing for you. You have no leverage. You're just moving off of him just to get off of the situation to be able to move on, which means a team may be able to come in and go, hey, Cleveland, here's a 4th-round pick. Please let us have Baker Mayfield. Ooh. That's not happening with Jimmy Garoppolo. It's not. Niners are they're going to try and get a second. And if they don't get a second, then I imagine there's going to be another plan in place.
It might be more than a second. I don't know. I mean, like, what team, like, I would pick Baker right now over Jimmy Garoppolo, but like, that's a good point. Like, why? I couldn't imagine Baker going for that cheap, because with all these quarterbacks going for that little, like for that much this year, I couldn't imagine him going for that cheap. But that's a good point. I mean, the Browns really, like you said, the Browns do not
They
have
bollocks this, dude. They
they
bollocks this to the moon. They screwed this up so bad.
so badly.
They didn't talk to another team and try and figure out a Baker. They didn't even try and trade Baker. They just held on to him and were like, hey, we're gonna go in for Deshaun. And if we get Deshaun, great, then we'll worry about Baker afterwards. We'll just worry about that after the fact. The problem is you pissed off Baker so bad now. He just wants to go, and teams know that. He just wants out. And you guys have no leverage. You're either gonna have to trade him or cut him.
Well, and when Baker requested a trade, we're all like, okay, there's like a quarterback in place. And a lot of people were like, is it Jimmy? Is it Jimmy? No, it's not Jimmy. I mean, why would you literally, like, Baker Mayfield, I don't think would I don't know. It's an interesting situation. I kind of knew they were going to trade for Deshaun Watson before they did, because
well, the other thing too, every team, Kyle Shanahan said this back in 2018, 2019, I forget what year it was. It might have been 2020. Every team either has an elite quarterback, or you're looking for an elite quarterback. That's how you win in this league. You either have one or you're looking for one. So you made the move for Jimmy. You traded for second. You brought him in, hoping that he was that guy. Looked that way in 2017 when he came in and played those last 5 games. You win 5 straight. Your team was hot garbage. You're like, okay, cool. 2018 starts off great until he tears the ACL on a fluke play down the sideline. It's like, all right, that's unfortunate. 2019 happens, and everyone's like, well, hot dang. We got him, boys. We got him.
Yeah.
You lose the Super Bowl. A lot of fans upset about it, but no one has turned on Jimmy. People will turn on Jimmy until 2020 when he gets hurt, plays horrible through a terrible injury, and just shows that he's not really the dynamic guy who can do a lot of different things, especially when he's got some limitations. And so the Niners realized it then too. And you have to try and find a way to get an elite quarterback. Browns are in the same boat. They're looking at Baker Mayfield, go elite traits, some elite characteristics, some things we like, a lot of things we don't like. We don't have that.
Right.
We were trying to find that. You already know that Jimmy's not that. Why would you? Every team that's looking for a quarterback was going to go after Deshaun Watson first. It's the reality. And as much as 49ers fans may hate to hear that, that's what was going to happen. They were going to go for Deshaun first. They were just going to. And now teams are stuck between 2 options, right? You're stuck between Baker Mayfield. You're stuck between Jimmy Garoppolo. You're stuck with potentially going after Jameis Winston, which is an unproven, untested commodity who has a lot of highs and a lot of lows.
We're waiting for a guy in the draft.
Which, I mean, you're not getting anything out of it if someone comes out of the draft this year. No one in the draft coming out this year is taking a team to the playoffs. That's not happening.
I mean, yeah, probably not, because the team's rebuilding. But Malik Willis, I mean, I would love Malik Willis to go to one of these teams that need a play that are almost to playoff contenders. I would love for him to go to Carolina. I would love for him to go to Washington, the Commanders, Steelers, something like a team that has players around in pieces. He can't do it. He's not there yet. I like some things about Malik Willis, but there's a lot of things I don't like about his play and the things he's done as a quarterback and some of his skill sets. I keep hearing about the cannon arm. I don't see cannon arm when I watch Malik Willis play. So I have some different. Did you watch his combine?
I did.
Okay. I mean, that was pretty impressive. It was.
I watched the whole combine, man. Look, there were some really bad throws by every single quarterback at that combine. Every single one. I'm talking horrible ball placement on routes that are standard in the NFL in most systems. And I'm sitting there going, how is any coach looking at this right now and being like, building it with you today? We're going to the playoffs this year. There's no coach that's thinking that, I don't think. I don't think there's any coach that is, because if that were the case, Jimmy Garoppolo would literally have no trade value. Baker Mayfield would have no trade value. The Browns wouldn't have given up $230 million over the next 5 years to get to Deshaun Watson with all the question marks around him. You don't do that if that guy exists in the draft this year.
Well, and that's a good point. I think teams like that, it's very lucky, because teams like the 49ers are like, oh, thank God that this year is the year where the draft is super weak, because this is the exact year that we are trying. Like, if you would have tried to trade him last year, his trade value would have been a little bit less, because you've got a little bit stronger of a draft. So, like, they're lucky that this draft is weak, because otherwise, like you said, he'd have no trade value. But the thing is like,
hold on, is it luck, or did they know this?
Did they plan it ahead, like 3 years ahead?
Well, not just that. I mean, think about it. They were sitting at 12 after a year that they didn't expect to have. They're sitting at 12 going, next year's draft class is kind of hot garbage. Like it's
Yeah.
bad at the quarterback position. We can't get a future replacement. Hey guys, why don't we just do it now?
Yeah.
Like, why don't we just do it right now? Why don't we just move up and get the future
Yeah.
quarterback in this draft where there's a lot of talent? Why wait till next year when there's that guy doesn't exist? I think the Niners knew exactly what they were doing when they made the move.
Yeah.
They were looking at Deshaun Watson. They were looking at options last year. When everything happened with Deshaun, they were like, all right, well, we got it. We got to address the quarterback room, right? We can't do it next year, right, guys? We've seen the quarterback class. It's not good. Okay, cool. Let's do it right now.
I think another, like, and before we leave this, I agree, but another domino is when, like, the 49ers, I think, are still trying to figure out their offense this year. They're still trying to figure out a lot of offensive weapons, their offensive line and everything else. So I think their biggest worry right now is just getting weapons around Trey Lance. Then they can shop. I actually do not think Jimmy Garoppolo is their number one thing. I think their number one thing right now is trying to fill out this roster to where they can compete with the best of them. And I think it's already there, but their offensive line still has some question marks. So I think they're like with Jimmy Garoppolo, okay, like, I guess we can wait till the draft, because draft day, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be, I think, here till the draft, and then, you see a lot of trades happen draft day, and I think that's what's going to happen. So
there was a lot of stuff. I mean, the Niners, was it like, I think it was like about 60, not even 60 days. It was less than that out from the draft when they moved up to 3. We saw Sam Darnold get moved closer to the draft.
Yeah.
I mean, this happens. Like, guys get moved closer to draft time. It happens. I think everyone was thinking that wasn't going to be the case.
Yeah.
Because, you wanted to free up the cap space. But Ant and I kept saying this on our pod. People keep forgetting the Niners have and still have a lot of ways to free up cap space. Ant and I talked about on the pod, they had $40+ million worth of money in current contracts that could be restructured or extended to free up that space, which meant the Niners were, in theory, if you made all of those moves and traded Jimmy Garoppolo, you were going to have almost $60 million in cap space. Like, it was going to be close if you made every single one of those moves.
And it made sense for them to restructure Eric Armstead and George Kittle's contract because, dude, both of those people, you could say, are getting overpaid for what they're doing.
I will never say that George Kittle is getting overpaid, Ben. I can't do it.
Yeah, that's
he was the third. He was the third highest ranked tight end in every statistical category last year in receiving. He was the third highest, and he missed 3 games.
That's a good point.
He missed 3 games.
That's a good point.
It's because he missed 3 games. That's why people are upset. 49ers fans, you gotta taper it down just a little bit sometimes. Not everybody, but just because there's some people who go over the top. Trade him now. He's worthless. He was the third highest rated tight end.
And the thing is if like you trade him now, like who do you have at tight end? You'd have to draft somebody. Or get another. That's a good point. I don't think we should trade him. I think
if you were gonna go all in on Tunyon, if you were gonna go all in on like 2 other names and like pay some guys less money than George was gonna make and make your room deeper, and you lose a little bit with George, then I get it. Maybe I get it. But in all honesty, the way the Niners run offense.
And the other thing is he always gives you an insurance policy along the offensive line kind of thing. Because let's say you're going into next season with a not as good right tackle or something like that. He gives you an insurance policy right there. So like, yes, maybe if we get a better right tackle and a better offensive line, yes, that can work in the run game. But pass protection, I think he was a key part of it, and he has been. So I think that is a little overblown when 49ers fans say, like, let's trade him now, because I think that is a little unrealistic when you're saying, okay, you're talking about a guy that has been a critical part of the 49ers offense, and who would you replace him with? Like,
that's the question.
Somebody, so
that's the question right there.
Okay, so next thing we have, let's get to a little bit more NFC West talk. Who is going to be the next Seahawks quarterback, Baker Mayfield or a QB in the draft? I think at this point, I don't think they want Drew Lock to be their starter or Geno Smith. That would be, and I think by that time, if either of those guys were to be the starters, DK Metcalf would not have it. Imagine them telling
I don't know.
Seahawks.
Did you see DK? DK came out and defended Drew Lock.
Oh, wait, really?
Yeah, he came out and defended Drew
Okay,
Lock.
well,
So dude, it surprised me just as much as your reaction right now, Ben, was my reaction when I saw the Drew Lock
yeah.
defense from DK. I don't
Okay.
know. I don't know what's going on there, dude.
I would think that anybody would declare a trade or something if you're like, you're replacing Russell Wilson with who? My money is not going to be backed up at all. My contract, like, no way. So, like, I would expect them to go after somebody else. There's no way. This is not what how the Seahawks do business. It's not going to happen. So, my thing is, Baker Mayfield, main player, maybe on the market. And I mean, that wouldn't be a bad thing for them to go after. Or do they rebuild? They pick somebody like Malik Willis or something like that in the draft. Who do you think they get, basically?
This is tough. I actually want them to have Baker. I think Nick
Yeah.
Bosa would enjoy Baker Mayfield playing in Seattle and Nick having a chance to sack him 2 times a year. So I think
Okay.
I like that option the best, but I don't know. I don't know what Seattle's plan is. I
Yeah.
didn't actually think that they would try and rebuild with a 70-year-old coach. I didn't think that the rebuild would include them getting rid of Bobby Wagner.
Yeah.
I don't know what the plan is there in Seattle. It feels like a complete overhaul time, and maybe they go get somebody. But here's the thing: is I think they have so many holes, and they've moved off so many guys. Kerry Hyder released, Dunlap released as well, Bobby Wagner released. I think they're going to try and trade Jamal Adams too. I know people haven't been talking about that, but Jamal Adams literally said he wanted to come in.
Okay.
And the reason he wanted to come to Seattle was to play for a contender. They're not a contender anymore. So he may be on the outs.
That plan backfired real quickly for Jamal Adams in less than a year. What?
It also backfired. I mean, it backfired for Seattle too, right? You traded the first round picks, and one of them is being used this year by the Jets.
Yeah.
I mean, you were in a bad spot if you're Seattle. So I don't know. I don't think a quarterback solves their problems at this point.
Yeah.
With many people they've cut and let go. I think they're going to maybe draft a quarterback late. I think they're going to try and get a talented edge rusher in the draft. I think they're going to go after maybe some interior O-line or maybe some tackles in the draft.
True. Maybe Tyler Lindenbaum. Do you think they go after him?
They could.
Maybe trade down or
it would
maybe.
upset me. It would upset me if they did that. I kind of like him too. I like him a lot. So I don't know.
Oh yeah, from that standpoint, yes. I mean, it's a tough situation that you're in because you don't really. There's obviously, like you said, the quarterbacks aren't as flashy. So you're looking at that. You're like, okay, not as much there. But then you're also looking at and you're like Baker Mayfield. That's an interesting because you're kind of bringing in a guy who doesn't really elevate your team as far as leadership. And if you're bringing in Baker Mayfield, that guy is most likely going to be your franchise quarterback for a few years. So like, why would you bring him in as well? And another thing, it's like Pete Carroll. Like, why would you choose to stick with Pete Carroll instead of Russell Wilson? Well, I have no idea why you would want to do that because but I think the thing is I think they have ties to Pete Carroll. That's why they stuck with him because they're saying, okay, well, you got us out of the pit by drafting Russell Wilson and getting him already. No, maybe not drafting Russell Wilson because he was drafted in the last regime, but developing Russell Wilson, making him a very good quarterback and kind of bringing us to a contender for the last 10 years. So I think their trust lies with Pete Carroll, and that's why I think they did not move. They decided not to move on from him because he made the Seahawks what the Seahawks are today. That's why I think they're not moving on for Pete Carroll. So it's an interesting situation, and I think Pete Carroll will figure it out. But like, wouldn't that be funny if you would have Drew Lock as their starter? I would love it. I would love it. But it
would be absolutely fantastic.
Hilarious. I don't think it's gonna happen. I don't think it's gonna happen. But who knows? I mean, that would be interesting. I don't know. The fans would not like it at all for Seahawks.
No, but I will. As a 49ers fan, I know most 49ers fans are going to be enjoying every second of the season and watching Seattle crumble. Ant and I have been waiting for 2 years to be able to do a sketch on the podcast when the Niners play Seattle. Specifically, the second time you play Seattle. We have been lying in the waits for 2 years, wanting to release a sketch. And we haven't been able to because Niners gosh darn it, haven't been able to do it since the 2019 season. And so we're both hoping this is the year. We're hoping 2022 is the season of the sketch for the Seattle Seahawks.
Well, and the other thing is, like, do you think the Seahawks, like, is this finally the year where they're not aggressive? They've always been quite aggressive, but, like, do you think this is finally the year where they don't try to go after any quarterbacks? I don't know. I think they're actually probably one of the main front runners for Baker Mayfield, just because I don't think it would take the first round pick. And don't they have other picks in the draft? I don't know.
They had given up a lot of draft capital, and
Right.
I thought they weren't necessarily in a great boat coming into this draft. Again, I think they didn't have picks in the first and second up until, they dealt Russell Wilson away and are definitely in a much better spot now since that trade in terms of draft capital and being able to build in the draft.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's any world in which they're dealing a one for Baker. I know I've seen a lot of people talking about a one for Baker is possible, a one for Baker is possible, a one for Baker is possible. I think that the Cleveland Browns have
the ninth pick, though. Ooh, that's a lot.
The Browns didn't overplay their hand. The Browns played their hand poorly. There were definitely ways to mitigate this and talk to Baker. I think Baker just thought they were talking, not serious. Let's also not forget that this is the same Browns team that when the season ended and they weren't in the playoffs, came out and said Baker Mayfield is our quarterback in 2022.
Ooh, okay.
And then flipped the script and started shopping around for other quarterbacks. So Baker feels betrayed. I don't necessarily blame Baker. Here's the problem. Baker has not handled this the same way that Matt Ryan has handled this. He has not handled this the same way Tua Tagovailoa handled this. A guy who was drafted right around the same time and is as young as Baker. And he definitely didn't handle this as well as Jimmy Garoppolo. It's a reality.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. Like, why would you want to bring in a guy like that? Like, does he really want to be part of another rebuild with the Seahawks or something like that? And like, this is the thing where I think they strongly could get Malik Willis. Is Pete Carroll was at the combine. He saw Malik Willis throw, and I mean, at Malik Willis' fullest potential, maybe he has the skill set of Russell Wilson, and maybe he'll never get there. But maybe you're Pete Carroll's thinking, okay, well, he's a little bit taller than Russell Wilson. Definitely could do some of the things that Russell Wilson can do, and maybe he has some trust that he can develop this kid. So maybe it's Malik Willis with the 9th pick, and you put in Malik Willis. They don't have a great offensive line, but they do have some really damn good receivers. So that's an interesting thing. I think that's right now. I think the front runner is Malik Willis, and as crazy as it seems, and as bad as this draft might be, but maybe this Seahawks see something in this kid that maybe we can work with him. I don't know. Could be.
Possibly could be the case, man. There's a lot of ways for Seattle to address that quarterback room. I'm not going to try and predict what the plan is at this point because I haven't understood a single move that they've made. Just like I haven't understood a single thing San Francisco is done in free agency. But that's just me.
It's stressful. Yes. So let's move on to the last topic of the day. Once again, everyone, thank you, everyone, for sticking with us because we have for the most, like, we'll get to this next topic, but quick shout out to everyone because we have probably one of the most people in the stream that we've had in a while. So thank you everyone for watching this on a fine Sunday morning with my guy Alex. But if the 49ers were to go after a top free agent, and again, we talked about this earlier, they're not really aggressive, so probably not. But in our wildest dreams, who would it be? A top free agent? Who would it be? It's interesting.
This is so hard because my top free agents, the guys that I wanted the Niners to actually go off of are kind of, for the most part, off the board. But as of this moment, as of right now, at this current point in time, I would want the Niners to try and go get Stephon Gilmore. That's what I want. I want.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to go all in at cornerback? Let's do it then. Let's go get Stephon Gilmore. Put him opposite of Charvarius Ward. Put Emmanuel Mosley in the slot with Ombre Thomas, Diamond Lenore sitting there. And still the possibility of going out and grab Jason Verrett as the rotational guy, or even K1 Williams as the rotational guy in that room to start off the year. I think that's my ideal one. Dante Fowler was the one I really wanted them to go get. Unfortunately, Dallas decided to swoop him up and be total butts about this. So I don't appreciate Dallas. I don't appreciate Chandler Jones not being available. There's a lot of names. Atlanta deciding to re-sign Cordero Patterson. Don't like it. Mike McDaniels, grabbing up Raheem Mostert.
Yeah.
going after other 49ers players like a total butthole. So I don't appreciate any of that from those guys. But at the end of the day, I think Stephon Gilmore makes sense. I think Marquez Valdez-Scantling still makes sense for the San Francisco 49ers. And I've talked about this a lot. Phillip Lindsay as a running back in the system would fit in really well. So we both like those options. At this point, though, probably Stephon Gilmore. I mean, maybe Tyrann Mathieu. But Tyrann Mathieu the money has to be right. The money has to be right. It has to make sense.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. Like, I would only bring in Tyrann Mathieu for like a certain price tag. I think the 49ers can get that one. It's a sexy move, Tyrann Mathieu getting him. But do you really need him? Like, you could go and get a guy in the draft, a safety right now, like that could potentially be really good. But at the end of the day, there has to be something done with the safety position before the draft or after it. By the time training camp comes, you have to, unless they're fine with starting Talanoa Hufanga, which I don't think they are. So there's going to be something done with that. Wouldn't it be interesting if the 49ers bring in somebody like Calais Campbell?
I would love it. I
would like that move a ton. And I think it's maybe realistic. I mean, maybe that could happen as well. But also, I was talking about this guy before, La'el Collins. I don't think he'd be that expensive. He's a right tackle. Do you really want Mike McGlinchey or whatever you get in the draft? We know the 49ers haven't been good at developing offensive linemen so far. Do you really want Mike McGlinchey or a guy that you draft?
Do you really think that? Do you think the Niners haven't done a good job of developing offensive linemen? I'm interested on this because I've had this conversation with a couple different people. I want to. How do you feel about that? In all honesty,
well, I mean, Jalen Moore didn't do great last year. I
thought he was okay in the game he started. It was serviceable.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe that's just how the 49ers roll. I don't know. I mean, there's good offensive linemen in the second half. Nicholas, Petit, Freer. I mean, all of those guys. But
here's the thing. Here's what I'll say about the Niners. I think they're underappreciated with how they've developed O linemen. Because for the most part, they've hit on some of the guys that they've signed in free agency and things of that nature. Let's not forget Daniel Brunskill was an unrestricted free agent.
Right.
He wasn't drafted. That guy went from who is this dude that they've signed who's not going to be on the roster in a year to the starting right guard for this football team.
Right.
I mean, and listen, is there issues with Daniel Brunskill? Absolutely, there's issues with Daniel Brunskill. But when you needed him most, he was Aaron Donald's daddy. Every time you've played the Rams for the last 3 years. So I think there's
a good point.
It's hit and miss with the O-line. It's hard. I think everyone's upset because Aaron Banks didn't turn out and pan out right away. Jalen Moore, everyone was excited about.
Maybe they're just waiting for these guys to come along.
Maybe they think they're close.
He brings up a good question. Should we draft 2 or 3 offensive linemen, center, guard, tackle? I could definitely see it. I think there's a guy from Darian Kennard. You could turn him into a guard Kentucky because he's a powerful guy. He was a right tackle, but not as good in pass protection. You could turn him into a guard to replace Laken Tomlinson. That's probably a second round, maybe third round pick or mid third round pick, something like that. So you could get Darian Kennard there. What do you think about that? Do you think we draft 3? I could very well see it with all these picks that we have.
I'm going to say we do 1. I'm going to do the opposite of what HR has said. I think the Niners are going to do 1, and I think they're going to go get themselves a guy like Zion Johnson at a Boston College or something like that who can do all 3. He can do all 3. He can play center. He can play guard.
I'll look him up.
Tackle. There are a handful. There's a couple of different gentlemen in this draft who are very flexible, and the Niners have shown they love flexibility.
Right.
They love utility. They love a guy who can do all sorts of things. Deebo Samuel, he's not just a wide receiver; he's a wide back. He can run. He can run routes. He can run out of the backfield. Offensive linemen like Justin Skule and Colton McKivitz, they can play tackle and they can play guard. Right? Daniel Brunskill plays tackle, center, and guard. He does all of those things. The Niners like utility. They like flexibility. They like being able to kind of morph their own line into different shapes. Like they want to be able to do different things. So I think they may go after one guy who can do a bunch of different things because the Niners have Colton McKivitz on the roster still. You have Aaron Banks, you have Jalen Moore, you have Trent Williams, you have Alex Mack. You're going to have Daniel Brunskill coming back. You're going to have Mike McGlinchey. You're going to have Justin Skule coming back as well. They already got 8 guys.
True.
They already had 8. I mean, there's probably one or two more guys, probably one other free agent guy coming in potentially. And well, actually, that's not true because they have Alfredo Gutierrez who signed his futures contract. So there's 9. You still have 9. They're probably going to draft one guy. They're probably going to draft one guy.
I'm a little bit scared about that, but
so am I.
Maybe these offensive linemen will pan out. He has a good comment here. Itchy, the biggest problem in MM was a number 9 pick, and the talent was really. Wait, hold on. Was really.
He's talking about Mike. He's talking about
later
Mike
pick.
McGlinchey.
He's still. Yeah, my eyes are a little bit. He's still okay though. Wait, Mike McGlinchey. Oh, okay.
Here's
okay.
Itchy. Here's the one thing I will say about McGlinchey that a lot of people don't give McGlinchey credit for is the run blocking. He's one of the best run blocking right tackles in all of football. In fact, in 2020, excuse me, when everyone was down on McGlinchey, he graded out as the best run blocking tackle in football behind Trent Williams.
Ooh.
I mean, you had the best left tackle run blocker. You had the best right tackle run blocker.
Yeah.
McGlinchey's problem is pass pro. That's always been his problem. You can fix that by moving him into guard, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe you fix that by moving him into guard. Here's the problem. What have the Niners shown they're not going to do? They're not going to pay a guard a lot of money. They won't do that. McGlinchey is set to make $10.8 million this year. Are you really going to go get somebody to go play right tackle and pay your right guard $10.8 million when you value your right tackle more than you value your guards? I don't think the Niners are going to do it. So I think we all got to deal with, take a deep collective breath inside. The Niners are going with Mike McGlinchey this year unless there is a better option out there for them to trade or someone they feel could start day one in the draft.
And maybe he'll look better with a more mobile quarterback. I don't know.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Or worse. Or Trey's going to hold on to the ball and Mike McGlinchey is going to be a liability. We
need a future center drafted.
Hey,
that's a good point as well. I wanted Ryan Jensen, but not happening. So
I would love Ryan Jensen. Unfortunately,
he re-signed. So
he re-signed and got a nice chunk of money. It wasn't as much as I think everyone thought it was going to be, but
yeah,
it was a nice chunk of money.
And then one more. He is, but still probably should have been in the 20s.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Good point.
I listen. I would have preferred Christian Wirfs a few years ago, but it's water under the bridge at this point. We can't dwell on the past. The reality is what it is now at this point.
Yeah. Well, everyone, we've been going for almost an hour. This has been a ton of fun. Thank you, everyone, for all watching. We had a lot of people in here. So, man, Alex, thank you for joining me. It was a lot of fun.
Hey, Ben, it was a lot of fun as well. And listen, everyone who watched, if you're not already subscribed here, make sure you subscribe to the Camper Report. Please subscribe to the Camper Report. He's doing a great job. He's doing an incredible job balancing everything that is life for you and everything you got going on top of this, man. Always tip my hat to you. You're doing a great job and killing it. And if you ever feel like hopping over to 49ers Cutback, anyone watching, and even Ben, we're probably going to do a lot of different stuff this year. Some war room stuff, some draft stuff. So we'll reach out to and work some stuff out. Maybe get you on over here and do some fun draft prep and some mock drafts. It'll be a lot of fun, man. Yes, it will be. It's the future is quite going to be, in a way, it's anxiety, but in a way, it's like, hey, it's a roller coaster, which is good. I mean, it produces a lot of content, a lot of stuff to think about in your mind. So, yeah. Absolutely. Well, real quick, he said, Itchy, just subscribed to the youngster. Thank you. And then this other guy, ASU center Donovan West, heard of him? That's a good one. As well. Yes. Yep. So we'll see you guys again later. Thank you for watching on Sunday morning. This has been Alex. This has been the Camper Report. We'll see you again soon as free agency continues to unfold.